So I'm getting the garage cleaned up. Got the table all cleaned off, got my first wing upstairs. And I'm just going to recheck the table to make sure it's not totally out of whack. You want it to be relatively flat because you build your wing on it and you want your wing to be flat. So it's pretty close. It seems like it's about what it was when I built it and adjusted it initially. I got cardboard shims in a variety of spots around here, so I think it's pretty good. Yeah, a tiny bit low in the middle, but I think it's quite close. Yeah, almost perfect in most places, and I think close enough everywhere. Alright, I got the spars. Here's the main spar, here's the rear spar, 7 ribs and a butt rib all laid out. What I'll do now is slide all the ribs, not the butt rib, I'll forget about that for quite a while, but all these ribs, slide them onto the spars. Actually, I'll mark the locations where the spars should line up, roughly, and then when you put the wires on, the drag wires, you adjust the ribs a little bit so the wires aren't hitting the cap strips that you made the spars out of. So you adjust the spars a little bit, but you want to get close to those lines as close as possible. And they need to be at a 6-degree angle, so I'll use a little protractor, put them at a 6-degree angle without binding. So I'll trim with a razor blade any place I need to trim in these 2 areas that the spars go through, so that these can sit at a 6-degree angle without binding. Sawdust. So that's the first thing I'll do. That'll take a little while, and you gotta fidget with it a little bit and just be gentle with the razor blade until they're all at a 6-degree angle without binding. So, well, if you were sharp-eyed in the first video, you might have seen that this actually was also a main spar, so I got rid of that and got the correct spar, the rear spar. Anywho, these all slid on pretty easily. I had to take my beautiful little Lie-Nielsen plane. I shaved a little bit off the top here and down there. They were just really hard to get on over the main spar there. But I'm able to have these at a 6-degree angle. Got my little protractor here, and I swapped it the other 6-degree direction since this wing is a mirror image of the first one. And they're all sitting at 6 degrees without force. Then I remembered something I need to do without all the ribs on, so I got to take all the ribs back off. But this took maybe a half hour, so it's not a huge deal. I need to take the brackets, these guys, plus the brackets that are a little more complex that stick out the bottom of the wings. But all the brackets that go, let's see, there's 2 here, 2 there, so the inside ones of each of those. And then here and here, we just have these small ones, and the compression tubes go between those 3 pairs. So just the brackets that go on the inside face. So this outside one, that outside one, I don't need to do anything. There are only these on the inside here and here, and then none of the ones at the root. So just this pair on the inside, this pair on the inside. I need to, oh no, that's not true. That's not true. So, actually, so all the brackets, I need to drill the second hole. So I'll line up the first hole, which is already drilled, like this hole here. I'll put a bolt through there, and then I'll lay the spar on the table, put a transfer punch through the other hole, and whack it. And then from that point forward, this bracket will stay mated. It will belong to these holes. So I've got to take the ribs off, do the transfer punch routine on all 4 of these, and actually then for all of those and for all of those. So although actually the ones at the root, that's not quite right. There's only 1 hole here now, so I'll bolt the brackets through the 1 hole and then drill all the way through it. All the way through. I guess I've already got the existing holes in those brackets. So let me show you. Yeah. So I've already got these 3 holes. So I'll put a bolt through this hole. I've got a jig that I built, and I'll line this hole up with this, using this against the butt of the rib, and then I'll drill these other 2 holes all the way through. Anywho, that I can do with this put together, but these other ones I need to lay the spars flat on the table, use the transfer punch for that second hole. So for all 4 of those, for these 2 and for those 2. So I will slide the ribs back off, use the transfer punch on those 2, and those, I guess, let's see, the inner 2, and then I guess I'll drill all the way through, putting I can drill the pair of them together on the drill press, just clamp them down together. And then I can put the ribs back on and proceed from there. Alright, so I got this little guy here. You may recall this countersink goes against the spar because a screw goes through it and sits in the countersink, and this little guy screws onto that, and this sits right here, and the compression tube goes between that and the other wing. So I'll face this countersink toward the spar, put this bolt through it, put it through that hole, and the tip of this should actually be close to, actually, this is upright, so it goes through this side. The tip of this actually should be really close to the bottom of the spar, so I'll just get these 2 sides. I want them to be horizontal or parallel to the spar. Get that adjusted close. Now I will just flip this over and set the bracket flat on this piece here. I've got another piece a little bit thicker than this at the far end down there, so that this is level, so that the bracket is sitting flat on this, so that when I bang on it, that weight gets distributed evenly. Probably not super critical. I have a transfer punch here. This is the same size as this whole 1/4 inch, and then you get a set of all different sizes. Just pick the size you need. Now these 2 holes, when you drill this pair of holes, that pair, 3 pairs in each one, and then a hole in the end here, you just measure with a ruler. They're given in fractions in the plans, so they're not super precise. If I did all these holes with a milling machine and a DRO, I could simply take these brackets and drill these the correct distance apart. I think it's 1.5 inches, and it would be like an assembly line. Everything would be interchangeable. Alright, I guess that didn't make any sense. Basically be interchangeable. But since you're just using a ruler for these, every pair of these holes could be a slightly different distance apart. So that's why I'm doing this. I use the transfer punch, and I give this a whack, and take this apart. Oopsie daisy. And now I've got a very, very clear mark here, and this will be super easy to drill a hole exactly on that spot on the drill press. And this piece then will forever be mated to this pair of holes, and I'll need to keep those together. I'll do the same thing over here and for each of those holes, and each of those needs to stay with that pair of holes because each pair of holes could be a slightly different distance apart. Alright, so that's what I'm doing now. Now I'll drill this slightly under 1/4, and then I'll ream it to 1/4, and it'll be ready to go. I'll also then hit all the edges with sandpaper, hit this with sandpaper, hit the new hole with sandpaper, and once these are done then, I'll hit these with some zinc phosphate primer. Actually, I'm going to keep this plane in a hanger. I'm hopefully going to sublease a hanger, maybe park it under the wing of a Cessna or something, which is kind of cool that I can do that. Hopefully for not terribly expensive. And I'll just flatten VFR weather. So, truthfully, I don't know if I really have to prime anything, or at least the aluminum, because it doesn't really corrode too quickly. And it should never get wet anyway. But I'll hit it with some zinc phosphate. And then these will be ready to go. And I'll prime these guys too. And so I'll do this for all 4 of these. That's the first one. I got 3 more. And then we'll go to the next step. So when you're drilling these, be really careful that you drill the holes in the right places and don't drill holes where they're not supposed to go and get these countersinks on the correct side. So for example, there's 3 holes here, but there's only 2 holes here, so don't drill a hole in the middle. It's easy to goof it up. Don't ask me how I know. And only the brackets that go in between the spars have the center hole, and make sure you get the countersink on the correct side. This side goes up against the spar. So if this is the front spar and the rear spar's here, this goes on the inside. This screw here goes into that, and the compression tube goes here. Same for this. This goes on the front of the rear spar. So countersink goes here for the screw to face in towards the center. These 2 that go on the outside of the spars don't have that central hole at all because there's no compression tube for those guys. So be careful of those. And I just did the transfer punch with these just like I did with the other ones, except the only difference is after I did the punch on one of these, I stacked up the 2 of them and drilled that hole at the same time. So that's the story on these brackets that go on the end. And this brackets that go at the roots, we'll do a little bit differently. I'll show you that when we get to it.